All right, cool. We're live. All right, I'm gonna try. Hopefully, this will be shorter than our Castle Nathria recap because it's hasn't been as long, and we've did some of it the other day, and just because last one just went way too long. So Terra grew super quick. Doesn't take ton of towers. Don't take lumbering form. Everything
Aw.
else is fair game. We need at least one person to get the heart thing. I forget. Ever beating heart, I think.
Her beating heart, yeah.
Yeah.
Chains.
The main thing is we're gonna have a stack marker somewhere. If you have ever beating heart, you're gonna stand on that stack marker. If you get chains on you, you move behind that person. So I've got Mythic Trap here because I don't have a VOD handy. Basically, you just go behind the person, or if you can immune it, I guess you could do that. Just make sure if you actually don't even do that.
Need
Just
to
get
share your
behind it.
screen, Mark.
Oh, am I not sharing? Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. I was waiting
Make
for
sure
you
you
to finish Terry.
turn down bitrate a little bit too, so it's not fuzzy.
Yeah, screen 720, 30 FPS. That should be fine, maybe. Okay. Uh, the other things are basically just Predator's Howl is just the fear circle. Just spread out when you get that, or you're going to fear anyone out. And for Priest, so Arca, you can mass dispel. I think every other one is the way the timing works, if I remember right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So just mass dispel, ideally on melee, but if not, just some clump of ranged. And then the different soaks. There's the purple one that gives you a magic stacking debuff. There's
The gray is the physical, and then the red
yep, and
fire
then
is
the
the
red is
what?
fire. Um, Everyone can soak the physical one. The other one, primarily people with the magic hands debuff or whatever it is. Or no, not the magic hand. Whatever the thing is that makes you drop stacks periodically.
It's called unstable form.
Sure, we'll go with that.
It's unstable.
But I mean, I expect this boss to fall over, so I'm not going to spend more time on it. In the intermission,
the big
just
thing is
stand on the white or on the non-black shit.
the big thing is you can soak both purple and orange, but you don't want to have the same debuff at the same time. So,
Yeah.
or you don't want to have the both of the debuffs at the same time.
That's all I'm going to say on that boss. Does anyone have questions? It's super basic.
Nope.
Cool. So here's Slim's VOD. The way we did, I guess. So the main thing with this is there's two phases. There's when you fight the eye and when you fight the two little eyes, I guess. The big things that'll kill you are the laser beam that he does. In fact, maybe I can just. He has it on here. Doesn't have, I think. I don't know. It's different. Yeah. So there's an annihilating glare. The boss is going to do a lighthouse type rotating beam around the room. We'll call which direction it's going, and you just want to run towards the other chain. Don't, at least for our first week, don't try to cheese it with like Night Fae and stuff. If you are confident using like Warlock teleports or more reliable things like that, fine. But if you die to it, I'm just going to ask that you just use the chains and be a good citizen. There will also be these dragging chains that come out. I'll wait for the clip to restart. But basically, there's a big circle. You want to take that towards, we're going to have a marker, but basically it's going to be in the middle of all the ranged. And just everyone needs to soak that so you don't get dragged to the edge.
We might try doing what we did on farm to start with, where the person solo soaks it and we just have a gate straight forward. So basically, you run all the way to the back of the room.
Doing that on farm.
Yeah, we did it like once at the end, but it's basically a personal responsibility thing. Then the person with the chain just goes all the way to the back of the room, and they just at the very end they spam their gate toy when they're right next to the boss, basically, and they just get pulled to the back again.
Okay, we can try it. This is a good, especially if we're doing it that way. It's a good mechanic for priests to be ready to grip whoever on if you see them getting close to the edge. But once the chains are over, it spawns an ad. Just kill the ad. Then eventually the boss will phase, and we're gonna split to the two sides. Just get to that point of the VOD. Oh, there's also these circles that come down. If you get hit, it spawns like 3 little ghost ads of yourself that you need to touch before it goes away. And if you get the slow debuff, you just want to go towards like the outside of the range so you're not dropping the big slow puddle on everyone. So Schlim just blinked out for it, and then he goes back in. That's fine. So eventually the boss phases. Okay, so no, this isn't the phase. This is just the grasp or the eye beam.
I believe it's 66% and 33 where it phases, right?
Yeah, there you go. So the boss phases, he flies away. Range are all going to go to this right side. Melee go to the left. The positioning is fairly particular. So melee, you're just going to be on the boss, so it matters less for you guys. But for ranged, you want to be... This is cutting it close. Ideally, the rule of thumb we had was that if you see, like, draw a line from the chains through the middle of this point, you want to be on the far side of that. The reason is if you're not, then there's a chance you'll be a little too close to the other ad, and then it's a 50-50 chance whether you get the right debuff or not. And typically, if we wiped on this boss, it was due to that. So everyone's kind of cheating towards this side of it. Then you just kill your ad. We're going to have a gate here back to the middle. Once you get your debuff, so as soon as everyone gets their debuff right here, then they can gate. It'll typically overlap with these swirls, so if you're going to gate right away, be quick so you don't get hit by those. So range are going to gate to the middle. Melee are going to stay on your ad. And then it's up to range to balance the damage on these 2 ads. We want the 2 ads to die at the same time. And so all the range are just going to sit in this clump. If you get this debuff circle, this laser, you just need to take it out of the group quickly, ideally to the wall, but as long as it's out of the group, it's fine. Keep dodging swirls, and again, it's just up to range, so you'll see Schlim target swapping a bit to help keep the ad health similar. That's basically that phase. Then we go back, we rinse and repeat. Do you remember when we lusted on this in farm?
On Prague, we lusted the second intermission on
once we
on
got
farm. We did it on pull, or we did it last phase. There was a couple different times we swapped it around, but we'll probably just do last phase or second intermission depending on our damage breakdowns. Especially with the affix, we'll have to see how that affects things.
But that's basically the fight. You just rinse and repeat until the boss is dead. I guess the last phase is just a burn because everyone starts to get this stacking heal debuff. So the only thing I really have to say about that is any like self-healing cooldown you have, you want to use it early in this last phase because it'll be useless by the end. So any health pots, health stones, other heals, just pop them earlier in the phase rather than later. And then it's just a burn. We will most likely still have to do an annihilating glare during this phase, so just be ready to move and don't be lazy. That's basically it otherwise. Any questions? Or anything people think I missed? It's a pretty straightforward boss. I don't think we'll struggle. Moving on to the 9. Also a pretty straightforward boss. Starts with these 2 mobs. The main thing that's like the main responsibility is if you get a mark over here, because you get these debuffs, so 4 people will get a debuff. They all need to group together, and then the healers will dispel them one by one until basically every time you get dispelled, the debuff jumps to someone near you, and the goal is to get all stacks of the debuff onto one person. Then it forms a little ice patch, and that mechanic is over. We'll have a marker for where we start, but it'll always be on the edge somewhere, and then the idea is we just kind of rotate those or dispel points clockwise around the room.
Once you get dispelled, move.
Yeah.
If you don't move fast enough, we dispel you, and you just get debuffed again.
I'm assuming this is part of the weak aura pack, Schlim?
The dispels is, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll have some kind of icon. I highly suggest you do whatever you can to emphasize so you have a giant...
It'll look exactly like that. Just off to the left a little more, probably.
Like this?
No, to your left a little bit.
Like this?
It's like kind of hidden in the blue right now. There's 3 names. Yeah. That
Oh, well, I assume there's a different one when someone actually has it, though, right? Or no?
I don't think so, because normally bigwigs and stuff emphasizes when those people have it, but
Okay. Well, then I would
That's
just
just the
suggest
stack.
for all of you, just go into your bigwigs, DBM, whatever, and just emphasize the shit out of that debuff. That's really the only thing that'll fuck us up, is if we're bouncing around that dot. And as soon as you get dispelled, bounce out. If sometimes it happens where you get dispelled and someone else gets dispelled and it bounces back onto you, so just be mindful of that. That if you do happen to re-get the buff, you just need to stay out there. But it spawns this pool, and then we just keep doing that side by side. The rest of the mechanics are kind of self-explanatory. There's the massacre lines that you dodge. There's this group soak, which as many people as possible get in that to just split the damage. There's these small circles that you just need to be out and not overlap with anyone. I guess the other point that tends to wipe people is the big purple soaks, which will happen here somewhere. These guys. So periodically, the bosses will summon 4 little circles. They just need to have 1 person in each. We'll have assigned soakers for that. They're kind of 1 in each corner of the room. So range will be assigned to that. The other 2 mechanics are the suck in and stay out. So there's this one, which they put down a dome and that'll push you away. You just need to be inside the circle when the timer expires. And there's an opposite version that sucks you in and you need to be outside the circle before the timer expires. I think the last mechanic is just at some point these guys get a shield, yeah. So they'll cast this shield. The bosses will be dragged out because they take like 99% reduced damage while they're in the shield. So just don't pop any big CDs when the shields are going up. There's these little ads. Those will just get gripped in and kill them. Interrupt them as much as you can. I assume we'll lust once we have the 3rd boss come down.
We'll have to see, I guess. On farm, we were just lusting on pole
Yeah.
to get her down faster. So
Okay.
we'll have to see how it's scaled. If it's rough, we'll wait until all 3 are down.
But that's basically the fight. It's literally just rinse and repeat. The mechanics, like order changes and the overlaps change, but the way you handle them all individually doesn't.
And then like healer wise, the pain points are just like when there's a soul link and a soak going out at the same time, right? Those are when it's scary.
Oh, these big bombs take those out.
So I don't know if you guys did. I know in Prague we just 6-sealed it because it let us one-shot it.
Yes,
we one-shot it and overkilled it.
The fight took like 10 minutes and you just eventually killed it.
But yeah, it's the circle soaks basically. And when the debuffs are actually out, they tick pretty fucking hard. Or if someone has like the shared suffering sort of mechanic and they're soaking a circle, it tends to hit pretty hard too. So
we're currently set to 5 heal it, but we should be fine. I'm assuming we can switch if need be, though.
We got down to what, 4 in farm?
Yeah,
I want to say.
Yeah, I think we did it with 3 at one point.
I think it was 3. It was possible with 3, but like if anyone fucked up the dispels, it became a mess. Bolty, do you remember? Was there like how did you guys handle the dispels? Was there like a set order or something?
No, it was pretty free for all.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you guys handled it. Like normally, I would just mouse over dispel someone who was walking out, so you can get one person pretty much immediately.
I think like on Prague, since we had 6 healers, it wasn't too concerning because if it messed up, somebody else could cover, and you didn't have all the healers on cooldown.
Yeah. Okay. I'll leave that to you guys to decide how you want to do it, but that's really the only times we rarely struggled on this fight was if we ran too few healers and the dispels got screwed up, essentially. And just be on the lookout for these circles. Like if someone dies, call it out if you're one of the people soaking this, so you can get a backup. And for everyone else, just be looking around the room when the circles are going out, in case one needs a backup. but that's essentially it. So as you can see, we eventually just kill this boss through attrition because there's no real enrage. I don't think there was an enrage. I guess technically there
There
was,
is,
but it was so
it's super
generous.
long.
Yeah. So the main thing is just you start to run out of room. Any other
Like
questions?
if they put the dispel faded thing on there,
That could be
that might
annoying.
be an extra annoyance for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
definitely if they
another
do that,
dispel.
I think we probably lean towards having an extra healer. I don't know. We'll
I
see.
mean, the big thing is we would just hold depending on how they overlapped, we would just hold them for after those dispels are done.
Yeah,
But
that's
I think the other big thing is specifically because the affix just got brought up. But last week we were just like insta dispelling the affix. From what I've seen, you're actually able to control it. If you're able to control it well enough, you can actually chain them through the entire fight for the most part, or have the buff for almost the entire fight. If you dispel one, wait like 25 seconds, dispel the other. As long as you can leave it on that person and not have them die to the dot, you can actually chain that affix throughout majority of the fights. So
So-
it might be good to have someone calling for that dispel.
Well, essentially, it is you would want to have just one healer assigned to be the person who dispels
Right,
insta on the
right.
first one, and then
Someone just controls it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And also just have warlocks dispel if you're low on dispels.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna make
I
me
don't
do
think we'll
mechanics?
run
No,
into that,
thank you.
but yeah, we
All
should
right.
be fine.
Oops, our designated dispeller. Got
Oh
it.
fuck.
All right.
fun
that's,
running imp, you idiot.
That's that
I wanted
boss.
to suggest it, so nobody recommended me for it.
Jacket's got this.
Remnant. This boss is just kind of annoying because there's lots of knockbacks. So there'll be markers around the room. The main thing is that 2 people will get a debuff. I don't remember the names. You'll get a big thing over your head and you need to be dispelled, but when you get dispelled, it knocks everyone, including you, backwards. So everyone else gets knocked away from you, and you get knocked backwards from the way that you're facing. We did this just with master spells, and I assume that's what we're going to do again. So the idea was you just position so that one person is right on the outer edge, one person is slightly inside of them, and then the raid is further inside both people. And then one of the priests master spells both people. You got to make sure when you're master spelling that it gets both of the people with the debuff, and everyone gets knocked to the other side of the room. We'll be calling out which marker we want the raid to go to, so you're always going to want to play towards that marker, and that's the marker we're stacking on for the dispels. Schlim, I assume you've got the weak aura in there for the dispel positions?
It should be. If I missed it, we'll hand
Okay.
it out at raid.
Yeah, so we'll have a weak aura that some of you probably remember that basically just says whether you should be the person all the way on the outside or the person slightly to the inside. And the logic is just that it will bias people who don't have like a blink or some kind of self-movement ability to stop the knockback towards the inside. Because if you're on the outside, it's a 50-50 chance whether... So if you're the person on the outside, you always want to face towards the outside of the room, and then it's a 50-50 chance whether you actually get knocked inside or out. And if you get knocked out, you need to blink or teleport or soul shape, whatever you can. It is a very short window of time that you have to do that in before you're too far. So just be like, don't have anything on GCD. Just be waiting to press that. We'll also have the weak aura that's just like a big master spell cast bar. Showing when the master spell is going off. I'll try to show that as soon as we get the first one. Okay, yeah, so this is what the debuffs look like. So they're going to go... Yeah, so it's basically Zot all the way on the edge, Morgo a little bit inside, and then everyone else just needs to be inside of here. You want to just make sure that you're not getting knocked off the edge, so you don't want to be to the side to them too much here. And then Priest will master spell when it's called for. Yeah, that's one other thing. Like, we'll specifically call for when the mass dispels will happen. We'll do like a 3-2-1 dispel. Don't just YOLO it. That's that mechanic. The other things are there's these swirls. Okay, at some point, these things. Just don't get hit by these. They do a bunch of damage and they silence you. There's the cones.
If I recall, there's 2 sets of swirls. So when you see the first ones go down, you get out of them, but be ready to go to their spots after they land.
I believe it's 1, then 2, then 3, based on which health bar. It's like 1 set at 80%, 2 at like
Yeah, every time the
50,
boss
3 at
shatters,
40.
you get an
Right,
additional
right.
swirl. There's these
But
cones.
yeah, if
Just
you're
dodge the
in the same
cones.
spots, it's you stand next to the spots that they're landing because those are the spots that will be open for the second set and so on.
Yeah, so those are the swirls, at least those ones are tied to the shatter. So the boss will do 3 of these shatter casts. It's a big chunk of damage, so this is a good time to use your personals. I think we back on Prague had like, yeah, I think it's in the ERT. You can barely see it. Where like this one was assigned to personals, and Shatter 3 was also personals. Yeah. But you just want to make sure you're healthy for that. This knockback also does a fair chunk of damage, so if you're low, make sure you health pop before the dispel goes out. The other big thing is these orbs. So the tanks will position the boss so that he's sending his frontal attack through the orbs. I don't remember what that frontal's called. Like something pain? Suffering. That's what it is. So don't stand in front of the boss in general, but especially when he's casting Suffering, because he's going to do this frontal. This frontal will hit the orbs, and that gets rid of the shield on the orbs, and then they take full damage. Prior to that, they take like 99% reduced. Once the orbs' shields are broken, everyone just needs to turn and kill those. Once the orbs die, they'll drop a little interactable orb, and someone needs to take those. So it's usually the DHs or someone else mobile. They just need to take those to the edge, like he's doing right now, and then just use your extra action button to throw them off. That is basically the fight. It's just getting used to the overlaps of these mechanics. So the swirls are particularly nasty for the mass dispellers. You want to make sure that you're dodging not just to avoid the damage, but so that you're not getting silenced into your mass dispel. And you generally don't want to mass dispel right as it's going off. There's like a certain cadence to it. So if you are a priest and you haven't done this fight with us, I suggest you go and watch some of these videos. I might be able to find my VOD actually, which might show the priest cadence.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it more, but the big
Yeah,
thing
there we
for
go.
healers is the shatter timings. There's some weird overlaps, and we need to make sure people are popping personals as well as having cooldowns lined up for those.
Yeah.
It's another fight where having the health before the mechanic happens is more important than actually healing the mechanic.
Yeah,
There's
100%.
not a lot going off after, but during it's scary.
So let me just post this in here. I'm not going to go through it now, but any priest can go watch my perspective of it to see. I'm pretty sure I was mass dispelling. It was usually me and Morgo. But that's basically it. The fight gets scarier as it goes on, because you've got more of these swirls every time there's a shatter. I guess the last thing is that for there's the mass dispel weak core, by the way. So eventually, towards the end of the fight, after we get two players get this debuff, this like mask will get the debuff, and then that will just time out. I mean, you can. Is it the chest? Whatever.
Yep.
So I got silenced like a noob, but I at least didn't fly off like someone else. But the main thing is, so we'll get knocked. Let me go back a bit. So we'll try to call that we're going to stack on the point of the room opposite that chess piece. So the idea is if the chess piece is up here by the search bar, then we want to stack on the other side of the room, dispel the 2 players. We get knocked towards the mask. And then a couple seconds later, this mask will explode and knock us back to where we were. As you can see, like it's pretty hectic because there's swirls all over the place and whatnot. So just use your defensives, use health stones and health pots liberally. And if you make it past that, the boss basically dies.
There's one extra thing. The helm floats around later on, and it will cast suffering as well. So you have to make sure not between the helm and the boss.
Yeah, so there'll be an extra one of these lines, and then it also casts, I think, the hand is what it's called, like the big cone. So there'll be points in the fight where there's like 2 overlapping cones, and you just got to make sure you don't get hit by either of them. This fight was super wonky on timings from what I remember. I don't remember what we did at the end of Prague, or at the end of Farm, rather. I guess I can go look in terms of lost timings.
You had some jank spell queuing as well for like the order reduce abilities.
Yeah, it was super. And I remember there was a point in our farm where, like, depending who it was in comp, like the fight felt totally different. We'd get some really cursed timings. Remnant.
I think in Prague it was like 30% or so.
What are you searching for? Sorry.
I'm just
Suffering percent are set. Those are set based on the HP, but you can spell queue to happen later.
why does it not show? Ugh. Okay, we just lost it on pull towards the end of farm. Okay.
Yeah. We will more than likely wait till 30%.
Yeah.
With the affixes.
It was such a short fight by the end. Goddamn. Is it? I mean, if it's going to be this long, you think it's even worth waiting? It's like second 3 minutes aren't even going to be up at that point.
It depends what affixes it is. I think if it's the orb one, and we could just less on pull and basically nuke to 30% with the orb buff, then we'll probably just do that. But if it's like, I don't know. I think it just depends on which affix it is and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at our kill times, assuming they're at all similar to this, it'd be like we either lost on pull or at 3-ish minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if we're in the 5-minute range, we just hold it because
there's no way. I can't imagine.
I know. It just depends on tuning and stuff because dom sockets and all that stuff.
Yeah, assuming it's
the
too
first
similar
pull,
to
we'll
this
probably
raid,
just
though.
send it on pull, but if we need to adjust it, we'll move it back.
Yeah. In any case, that's the boss. Any questions? It's like mechanically pretty simple. It's just managing all the positioning for the overlaps, moving out of swirls and then moving back to where you need to be. That's all. Okay, Soul Render. Another fight that's like pretty basic mechanically. There's these 4 quadrants of the room. We just refer to them by number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, going from left to right, looking at the boss. He will do this dance where he'll basically fill 3 of the 4 quadrants with shit, and you just need to be in the empty quadrant before it explodes. He will periodically fill 1, but then he'll do like a proper dance where there's like a couple different patterns of set orders where you do 5 different empty zones, if I remember right. So we'll have
an intermission.
Yeah, we'll have like movement speed things assigned. Warlocks can drop a gate from 1 to 4, which is helpful for that. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think anyone will have trouble with that. The main 2 things that will wipe us on this fight are handling of the chains. So you'll see this weak aura here that assigns who's next for the chains. So at the front of the room, there's going to be, when the chains spawn, there's going to be 3 things that are interactable. 1 on the left, 1 in the middle, 1 on the right. The order will be left to right for the assignments. When those go out, let me try to find. Yeah, so
Just one thing quick.
Sure.
Instead of doing left to right, we actually have the interrupt weak aura and they're going to get marked the same as they are here. So we'll just have interrupt orders. We'll probably interrupt the first ones and then grip them all onto
No, I'm talking about
That
chains,
guy.
not the ads.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because this works for the chains, right? This like next thing. I don't know how well you can see it on the Discord stream, but these are the 3 chains. So Wurzel's going to go to the one on the left. Rippers is going to go to the one in the middle. Mango's going to go to the one on the right. We do 1 immediately. So ideally, all 3 people should be more or less at their spot before the as the chains go out. But for the first person especially, because they're going to use theirs, break it immediately. Everyone else wants to be stacked up more or less. We'll have whatever healing cooldowns running for this. The second one I think we also sent immediately, and then was just the third one that we waited just to make sure that the raid was healthy before you pop it. Because basically every time you pop a chain, the raid will take a big chunk of damage. And the way you pop it is just by getting distance. The way we did that is by having a gateway placed in the middle towards the outside of the room. And so you just pick up your chain and then take the gate. Everyone else just needs to be dodging these swirls, especially when those chains are getting broken because you're taking a fuck ton of damage. But that's the chain mechanic. The other thing that'll wipe us is the ads. So let me go back a bit to when they spawn. So when the ads spawn, you get, I think, 4 of these ranged ads. They need to be interrupted. So like Schlim was just saying, there'll be our interrupt weak aura that'll be telling people to kick. And then there'll be 1 big ad that when it starts spawning, it spawns a little bit delayed after the little ads. So you'll get this big pillar of white shit that happens in one of the quadrants. Everyone wants to go straight to that ad because that's the ad we want to focus. It's this overlord. The big thing with how we kill these is 2 people are constantly going to be getting these red circles. You want to make sure these red circles are overlapping the ads as much as possible because they are a damage amp on the ads. So it's super important that those red circles are constantly on the ads. They will switch during the ads. So right here, they're going out on new people shortly there. So Bolty and Jake need to immediately move to get onto the ads. So focus the overlord first, and then everything else just gets cleaved down. Maintaining kicks, and we want to make sure they don't reach the front of the room. They're stunnable, they're CCable, so do whatever you can to keep them from getting there. That's basically the fight. You just rinse, repeat, ads, chains, and the intermission dance. Don't think there was anything else here. Yeah, this I
How
think
good were
we
the
always
timers?
lost it on pull. Sorry, go ahead.
How good were the timers for the chains for disc on this fight? I actually don't know what the timers were.
Sorry, what?
How good were the timers for disc for like healing the chains on this fight? Were they about 90 seconds or were they a little bit shorter?
It was something awkward.
Ah, dang.
I can tell you. Damage taken.
I don't remember the name
I
of the chains.
don't remember the name. Soul Manacles, maybe? No.
Maybe the shackles?
That sounds right. Where's that?
At the bottom, Warmonger shackle.
Warmonger Shackle.
That looks like it. 1 minute and that. Wait.
Yes, there was a set. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Right there. There's one that you do pretty early in the fight, and then you have the intermission
Oh,
where
that's what it's
you
just a
just
big break.
dance, and then there's 2 quick ones.
55, 330, 340, 420, 525. So the first one and the second one are really far apart, and then 2, 3, 4 are much closer.
Okay.
Whatever. You have your answer. Any other questions on Soul Render? The big thing that I think we had issues with when we had issues was either chains not being in position soon enough, the third chain not being mindful of people's health when breaking, and people not moving their red circles onto the ads in general or not killing the overlord quick enough.
I think remember in general for popping chains we'd have like 1 and 2. I read different guilds could be different. We popped 1 and 2 first and then waited on the third to top people off.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we did. All right, everyone's favorite boss, Painsmith. This boss is a nightmare for ranged. I don't think it's really all that challenging for melee. I don't know, where do I even want to start? Well, let's just like go through the VOD, I guess. This was a big wall, obviously, during original prog. I'm hoping it's not too much of a wall this time, but we'll see. The first thing that'll happen, so we're going to pull the boss into a corner. 3 ranged are going to get chains, and those people are going to go towards the middle. Let's see if I turn the camera. Let me go back, actually. So there's these 3 markers. Ignore the ones in the corners for a moment. Circle, diamond, and star. Those are the 3 spots that we have chain people stand in. They're intentionally offset this way, so you want to be very particular. This entire fight is very particular with respect to this grid. So you want a chain person precise in the middle of each of these 3 squares, and so that's what you'll see these 3 range do. It happens like 6 or so seconds into the fight that you get the first assignment. You want to move as soon as possible because after a couple seconds you'll get this chain around you like that. And if you run into anyone, including other people with the chain with it, you're going to boop them, and it causes chaos. Everyone else wants to be stacked in tight, and the general reference is these other 4 markers are the border of what is safe. So you always want to be inside of the kind of quadrant delineated by these 4 markers. Schlim will be calling which of the 4 corners we're generally moving to. It'll always start here, and then where we end up depends on how these walls of spike balls spawn. So we'll get these walls of spike balls. We want everyone to swap towards the one on the edge and just blast that down. That's a very hard swap. We want to kill this as soon as possible. Chain people, if you have a blink or a teleport or some other fancy way of getting to the other side of this ball wall, you can do that. Otherwise, you need to run away from the wall, and then you're going to tuck in behind the raid, making sure you're not booping the raid or each other. So you can see them do it here, where they will tuck in the hole that's made by killing that ball. The reason we want to kill this ball wall quickly is to make sure everyone's got time to make it through that. The raid will have already gone through. It's important for the raid, when you're going through, you want to go through the hole in the ball wall, and then follow the balls back. So we're going to generally end up back in that same corner. And so don't dilly-dally, because you still need to respect the quadrant that I was talking about originally. So now we're back in this corner. Then we get these traps. So 4 people, I think, get these, or I guess 5 people get these traps. The exact positioning doesn't matter. There's just 2 conditions. You don't want to overlap them with anyone else's trap, and you want to make sure they're on the edge of the platform. So that can be a mix of either this edge here or this edge here. And just don't go too far away from the boss. So everyone kind of claims their spot. It drops the swirl, and then the traps are armed. We'll have 1 person assigned. It was usually Koji during prog to break these one at a time. The idea is every time you break, the raid takes damage, and we get this stack. You want to make sure you don't trigger one when we still have this debuff. The debuff only lasts like 3 seconds or so. Another set of chains went out here, so those people moved. And here you can see the reason we have this marker. This is the edge of the safe space. If you're out beyond this marker, you're going to die. Then we get another ball set. We were skipping this ball set come farm. That'll depend on tuning. But assuming we get it, you just kill it again, go through, and then we'll typically phase here if we didn't already. And there he goes. So when we start intermission, everyone wants to stack up. This is the intermission is all about pixel stacking. So ideally we're as stacked as possible. periodically, every time these embers goes off, it's like every 6 seconds. 5 seconds, I guess. Every 5 seconds, he's going to smack his hammer on shit, and we're going to get all these red pools that spawn. We get one under every player, and then a couple random ones throughout the room. So the reason we're stacking is to try to make those as small a grid as possible, or as small a clump as possible. So you're going to spread out, then you're going to stack back up, and you're going to get these spike walls, and we're just trying to dodge through these walls while not getting hit by shit. You don't want to get hit by the balls, you don't want to get hit by the spikes, you don't want to get hit by the embers. We're going to have movement cooldowns aside throughout this phase, because it's super important that we try to get 100% uptime on the movement. One thing when we're dodging through these balls, again, this intermission is easier the more stacked we are. So the general rule of thumb we had is you always want to dodge towards the back when you've got a choice. So like here, you've technically got a choice of going here or here. You always want to dodge towards the back. That way we spawn all these things together, then we go through. Now here again, you've got a choice to go here, but we want people to go back away from the boss towards this backside. If you can avoid it, don't use blinks or soul shapes or anything here, because again, the whole name of the game is staying stacked up. You will have enough movement speed. We'll have a weak aura that we used in farm. I guess we didn't have it during prog. That'll basically have a countdown towards when we gate, because we're going to do like 4 of these dodges, and then we're going to come back towards the gate. The big thing when you're taking this gate is we get an ember spawn right before we need to gate, and it's going to feel scary, but you want to make sure you're baiting, then we get the embers, and then you gate. You don't want to take the gate beforehand, otherwise you're going to gate, and you're going to spawn your puddle here where everyone's landing, and that's going to kill people. And we just keep doing this. We'll have someone calling which direction we're running as well. We had Mango do it for our original prog, but it could be whoever. Again, here you always want to bait towards the back. And then, so at the end of the phase, it spawns these ads. So the way that we did this in farm was we'd gate at like the very end of the phase. And so the idea is you would gate right to the front of the room. When you take that gate, you do not move at all. You bait the embers right under the end point of the gate, and then all the ads are nicely stacked up, and then we blow them up. So it's a little different from how it looks here, but in principle, it's the same. We need to blow these ads up before they finish their cast, otherwise we wipe. If anyone gates too late, then you end up potentially with an ad back here, so you want to be careful of that. The second phase is largely the same. The only thing that's different, which we'll see in a sec, is every time the boss throws a weapon at the tank, we start to get these spikes that radiate out from where the tank got hit. So you'll see them coming from here. This is where it starts to get really scary for ranged. So again, if you've got a way to teleport or blink across, use it, because it's going to make both your life easier as well as the other chain people's life easier, because you're out of the way. But you want to, the way to dodge these, the timing's very particular. As soon as they pop up here, that's when you want to go through. Cheeky mage things. So there you can see the way Schlim does it. So ignore the blink for a second, but he's going to wait until these spikes come here, and then he goes through. Everyone needs to be paying attention to these. We had a bunch of weak auras with obnoxious sounds the entire time people were dodging these spikes. This killed a lot of people. If you get hit by this, you take a fuck ton of damage and it stuns you. Everything else about this phase is the same.
Big emphasis on the spikes is, yeah, as soon as they have popped up, you can walk over them.
Yes.
Even before that.
Yes. Technically, when the blue
as you
flash
see
happens.
Yeah, as soon as you see it's blue, start moving.
Yeah, and this is...
If you're on it while it's blue, it's too late. You're dead.
Yeah, I mentioned this at the beginning, but like the grid is super important to emphasize. So a lot of people have these crosshair weak auras for it, just because you don't, like where Schlim is standing right now, like this second, it doesn't matter, but in general, you don't want to be standing on like an intersection like this. You want to be firmly within one square or another, because if you're standing on an edge, there's a good chance you'll get clipped by some mechanic, even though you think you're safe. Besides that, this phase is basically the same. We kill the balls, we get through, we burn the boss, we do traps. Then we get second intermission. Second intermission works basically the same. Actually, for farm, this time around it's going to be different because we have the nerfed version. So I think after the nerfs, these balls didn't spawn in the first intermission, only the second one. But
Correct.
we already saw the balls, so in this case, this is what our second intermission will look like. But we just go through. The intermission otherwise works the same. So then third phase. Third phase is the trickiest. We have all the things that were happening before, except now we need... actually, did we do it there?
Yeah, they moved one square.
Did they move?
Yeah, they're all.
Oh, because they weren't. Okay, so...
Yep.
Oh, boy. So we've got these 3 original markers. Depending which way the wall of balls spawns, so we can either get it close to us, which we'll call something like near or close balls, or it can be far, which would be like over here. Depending how those spawn, the 3 chain people need to move in response to that. So if it's a near spawn like this, they just move 1 square away from the ball wall. So whoever's on the circle marker would go 1 down to here, purple would go to here, and the star guy would go to here, which you'll see them do in a second. So now they all move down 1. And the rest of the raid tucks straight towards the ball wall. You want to, again, make sure you're really tucking in so you're not getting hit by these spikes. I think actually we switched to having them move 2 squares, didn't we, for farm?
No, it's just 1 square, and then if you get a far wall,
Then they move all
the
the way.
raid moves far, and they move all the well on far. So on Prague, they moved all the way, and the tanks went to the halfway mark of the thing to drop their hammers. On farm, we actually swapped to where they were moving 3 squares, I believe it was, and
That's what I
then
must be remembering.
the tanks go all the way no matter what, because it's less raid damage technically.
Are we gonna do the farm strat then?
We'll probably just do this all
This
the way
version?
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's
other
the easier one to learn.
so if the balls are far, so in this case the balls spawn here, which is far away from the boss, instead of just moving 1 square, they kind of fuck it up here and die. But the idea is these 3 people are going to move all the way to the far wall, but still respecting their relative position. So this person is going to go all the way to the wall. This person's going to go 1 square off from the wall, and this person's going to go 2 squares off. So they still have this staggered setup, so they're not cleaving each other. So Schlim goes right there. Purple should be going right there, and Star should be sitting right there. They end up kind of fidgeting. They boop Schlim, and then all 3 people die. But that is the idea of what they're supposed to be doing. Meanwhile, the rest of the raid is
Just
just
to the ball.
going straight to the
Every
ball
time.
wall again.
So TLDR is that the raid always tucks against the balls. The chain people always move away from the balls, and the distance you move away from the balls is depending on where the balls spawn. So if it's far, you go far. If it's close, you only move 1 square.
Yep. And depending what our kill timing is like, the last trap set will call to bait it towards the middle. When we call for that, it doesn't matter where, just put it somewhere towards the middle of the room and not on the edge, because when we get to the end of the fight, he starts spawning spikes from every edge, and if you've got traps there, we'll just insta-wipe. But yeah, this fight is just a lot of very precise positioning. I recommend having a crosshair weak aura for the intermission especially. I recommend emphasizing the fuck out of the spikes that are coming from the tank. And for ranged especially, if you're not comfortable or haven't played ranged on this fight before, go watch a million VODs so you know what you're doing with chains, because it's very unforgiving. If you screw up those chains, you will quickly wipe us.
On intermissions, know that if you are fast and speedy and run ahead of the group, you will be fine and you will kill others.
Yeah. You never want to be ahead of the group. If you need to fall back behind the group, that's fine. But just never blink ahead of the group or do anything like that.
It's like a proverb. If you go ahead, you risk others. If you fall behind, you risk only yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you can fall behind and still live. Like, it's actually not super scary.
Right. Take it from someone who's usually behind the group. It's not bad at all. It's actually pretty safe. But going ahead means you will kill people.
Yeah. But ideally, as many people are stacked as possible, so we're not coating the whole room with fire. I guess the only other thing I'll say is, like, when you're in that phase 3, especially when we're getting the close balls, it can be really particular. Where do we have it? No. It was the first set of phase 3 that we had it. Yeah, these ones. So right here, there is not a lot of room to work with, because you basically don't want to be in line with the star person here, and you also don't want to be run over with the balls. So for range especially, just the best thing you can do is get yourself right in this square exactly and just plant your feet until the last possible second. Because we often had cases where people backed up just a smidge too much here because you're feeling squished in, but that's just the way it feels. And then they get clipped.
As a ranged, it's hard to get off more than instants in that situation, but it's more important that you survive. I would say two more things. You could see right here the three symbols in the middle, the star, the circle, and the diamond. You get one of those symbols above your head when you have chains. So your instinct is, I'll just go to my symbol. But if everyone is in the corner, like you see here, and you get star, and you're the first one to the middle there, you don't have to set yourself on star and just sit there, because the slower people behind you then have to move around you to get to diamond and circle. So if you're quick and you get out there to the middle, feel free to take one of the far symbols. Like, you don't have to go on your symbol.
Yeah, don't think of these as super strict assignments. If you're one of those 3 people, just like be a good neighbor, and if you see someone who's the last person running out, like make space for them to get the easier marker if need be. Don't be, you're not tied to your particular marker necessarily.
I'd say one more tip from the mobility struggled. I don't think you mentioned this one, Mark, but when the tank spikes come out, you can see they move diagonally across the field. Trying to squeeze through one of the sides is a lot easier than trying to cut through the diagonal corner. If you try to do that, most of the time you'll get clipped and die. Might make more sense if you have a visual
I'll
of that
find
more.
a. So basically, what Boldy's saying is try to go over these spikes from like here over or here over, and not from like this diagonal point over this way.
I know anytime I tried to squeeze through diagonal there, I didn't make it.
Yeah. I would like the way I played this at least is when we were getting those tank spike waves, I would just kind of pick a spot. I'd say like, okay, like I'm just gonna plant here, and I'm just gonna wait until this, like the moment the spikes glow blue here, and then go over, rather than try to figure out how I'm gonna get across like last second. This is definitely a fight I recommend everyone just go watch a VOD or two on their own before we get to it, because it's a pain.
Be a mage too. I like watching Schlim negate 2 mechanics at once with 1 blink.
Yeah. Fuck mages.
Fuck Schlein.
Fuck Schlimage. Alright. Moving on to a much simpler boss. Guardian. So first big thing here is please do not pre-pull this boss. If you're gonna pre-pull, or like this is the last boss you want to pre-pull, because it fucks up positioning and then we almost always end up wiping rather quickly. So just give it the extra second. We will lust this on pull. This is the closest thing to patchwork in here, I guess. So there's a couple things. You see these 3 big energy cores. 3 people at a time are going to get bombs. We're going to have a weak aura that assigns you to either left, center, or right. And you need to go immediately to be within the circle. You want your circle to be overlapping the pylon, and you want to go towards either the left, center, or right, depending what your weak aura says. Those directions are always with respect to, like, from the boss, looking from the boss towards the pylon. So in this case, left would be here, right would be here, center would be here. You do not have a lot of time before these bombs go off, so it's important that you move quickly and get to your spot so that people aren't just screwing things up. Once that goes off, you can get back to the group. Boss will periodically do that frontal at someone. So the rest of the, for ranged especially, I guess, the positioning when you're not handling bombs is you're trying to bait those laser frontals away from the energy core. So you typically want to be positioned so that the energy core is to your left. So where Schlim was is kind of the perfect spot. So just somewhere in this line is where you want to stand. You don't want to be baiting them onto the core because there are certain overlaps where you can get a laser and you don't want it hitting these people as they're doing their bombs. This thing will fly around and just damage random people. If you stand in the little circle under you, it'll silence you. So just be aware of that. The other mechanic is the tank sunder combo. We just had a gajillion immunities. I assume we're just going to do that again.
Yeah.
So there will be an assignment. It's basically a tank takes a hit, and then is it 3 immunities?
3 immunities per, yeah.
Yeah, so 3 immunities will go and split the next soak, and then tank, and then more immunities. So this is where the immunities go in, they get hit, and then, or is it, what is the cadence? I don't actually remember.
Tank slap, immunity, tank slap.
Okay, that's what it was. And the last one is just a tank hit, which the other tank will take. Things that wiped us were largely people missing their soak with immunities, or accidentally popping an immunity or being dead for some reason and just not having enough soaks for that. Or people not handling these bombs correctly. So you want to make sure that your circle is overlapping the pylon, because every time it does, you're delaying the purging protocol, essentially. So this purging protocol, this is the big thing for healers. It does a fuck ton of raid-wide damage, and he just keeps casting it until we pull him into one of these circles. Do you remember how many we did in farm, Schlim? It changed a lot.
2-1-1, I think.
2-1-1 or 3-1? Yeah, something like that.
It was 2-1-1.
This will depend on tuning, how many we do. Because it's kind of a race where you get to choose how fast to kill the boss versus how much you want to raid heal the purging protocols. So when we call for it, the boss is going to get dragged into one of these circles. It's always going to be this circle, then this circle, then this circle. Everyone needs to get in as soon as the boss gets dragged in, or you're going to die. Stack right here on the edge where we come in, and then bombs still happen. So one, it's important that these bombs are not clipping the raid. So Schlim is right, so he's going to stand kind of over here where he's just barely not hitting the raid. And if you're in the raid, you want to be stacked so that you're not getting hit by these. So right here, you just want to make sure you're in this little empty slice of the room. Then we get a laser or frontal, which you want to make sure you're not getting hit by. And then we all run out as soon as this meltdown starts. You don't want to be in this when the meltdown finishes. Basically, rinse and repeat for the rest. Again, range want to kind of position to the right here a bit so that, yeah, kind of like in this line, so that you're not baiting lasers onto the core. And we just keep doing this. Basically the fight. There's nothing really changes for any of the 3 pylons. Just the cadence of the purging protocols will be a little different depending on how many we decide to soak. If you are an immunity and you die or accidentally pop your immunity early, just please say something so we can try to recover. Otherwise, that's the fight. The end of the fight is just a burn where he's casting Purging Protocol and we're trying not to die.
Just have to wait for a second. But doesn't diffuse magic have some interaction with the immunity soak?
That I'm not sure of.
Or they can live one of them, I'm pretty sure. With
Yeah,
it's been a while.
so it is magic damage. I think you can, if you diffuse and pop something else, you can survive one. It's the same thing as rogues. Technically, if you throw both rogues in with feint, they can live with cheat death. Because it's not enough damage to proc their cheat death. I don't know how that's going to work with scaling. So
Yeah, it's very close with rogue stuff. I mean, you could just cloak it as rogue. I'm like,
right,
your-
but so we normally use your cloak in the rotation, but
Mhm.
if there's a situation where, say, I had popped my ice block,
Mhm.
both rogues can step in with feint for the second soak, and you guys
Oh, I
would
see.
both live.
I think it was 9 immunities that we had in the comp typically.
I think rogues
So
could do 1 and 4.
it depends on the class, and how short the immunities were. If you had a frost mage, you could do it with 8 rogues, and if hunters used a conduit, they could lower it as well. So it just depends on the classes, but yes. And if you had a prop pally tank, you could have 1
8
less
here.
soak overall as
All
well,
right.
because you had spell warding.
You can take Born to be Wild, right? And have lower aspects as well with the conduit, probably.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Fate Scribe. Probably least favorite boss in here. This fight, 2 phases that go back and forth. First phase, just take these big circles towards the wall and don't overlap each other. This is the tank soak. That tank is going to get out, just don't go near him. It spawns an ad, which depending on tuning will either call to kill or not. At a minimum, though, you want to make sure someone's throwing slows on this thing. These Fated Conjunction are just beams that come from different points in the room. To dodge these, the safest thing is just to be next to it and don't be too close to the center of the room, because this one's you can't see it, but it's gonna come straight through the middle, and so like here is no longer safe. So the safest thing is just to get back away from the boss a bit, away from the center of the room rather. In general, just avoid these orbs. They'll be throughout the fight. They do a ton of damage. When these shades die, they spawn a bunch of ads. We just kill those. And then this thing that you're seeing, I forget what this is called, Runic Affinity or something?
Which one?
This thing where everyone has to
Find your
soak a
spot.
circle. This thing, the find your spot thing. I don't know.
Important.
Scroll back.
Grimporton. Yeah, that's what it was. So there's going to be, I don't remember how many. There's like 6 people or so. So you see all these circles across the room, more than 6, I guess. If you get that, one of them will look bigger. So try to pause it. So this giant pillar here is what you're looking for. If you don't see it, like, make sure 1, you're completely zoomed out for this fight, and 2, you're like turning your camera, because it can spawn pretty much anywhere. Sometimes you'll have a really annoying one that's like on some edge of the room that you're not looking at, and you don't have a ton of time to find them. It's a relatively easy mechanic, but if you don't see it, then you're going to wipe the raid. So everyone just needs to stand in their soak. Otherwise, we wipe. Otherwise, we're just killing ads. Some repeat. The boss will phase. So the intermission is kind of the hardest part, or at least the more unique part to this phase. There's going to be 2 big ads that spawn. They're going to be tanked near one of these braziers. All the ranged want to be right up against this wall, because there's going to be this thing that's rotating around the room spawning little balls. If you step in this big thing, it'll basically one-shot you. It does a fuck ton of ticking damage. So you want to make sure you're standing up against the wall as close as you can. You want to be, I think, 20 yards away from these monstrosities, because they do a casting like Despair. Yeah, Despair. Every time they cast that, it does a ton of damage. So you either need to be 20 yards away, or if you're melee, you're going to line of sight with this little edge of the wall. If you have a rune assigned to you, we have this week, Aura, 6 people will be assigned to manage one of these runes. The idea is you need to get this rune into the socket on its ring. So, for example, this rune here needs to go around and make it into this socket. The runes will spin based on the number of people standing in them. It is, I believe, clockwise if it's an odd number of people, so typically 1 person, or it's counterclockwise if you've got an even number. Hopefully tuning is such that we don't need to worry about clockwise versus counterclockwise in phase 3, but at least for the first 2 phases, you should be able to always go clockwise, and we will call for when people step in these, so that we're all stepping in them at the same exact moment, so no one's getting clipped by other people's beams. So if you get an assignment, this is not a fight where you want to try to greed damage. If you have an assigned rune, you're basically not doing shit other than this mechanic during intermission, or you're going to wipe us. As soon as you get the assignment, so Schlimm's case, he sees he got the 6th rune, so he's looking on the outside ring, which is highlighted here. He's looking for that rune there, so he's trying to get to it. And the moment it's called for, he's going to just chill there. Then when it's called for, he steps in it. Now, when you step in it, there's going to be this beam. This beam does a ton of ticking damage if you're in it. And the thing that's annoying is the hitbox of it is a lot bigger than it looks. And so if you're standing too close to this inside edge of your rune, you will take ticking damage. If you're like mysteriously taking damage and you're not sure why, that is 100% why. So when you're soaking these, the best place to soak them is from the outside and kind of front corner. As you're doing this, you want to avoid these balls that are spawning. And you're just going to walk your rune all the way in. There was a time where we had the person on the outside hold their rune. I don't know if we're still doing that. I don't think we really did that for most of farm.
Shouldn't need to.
So assume for now that you can just send your rune right into the socket. Once all the runes are in, then the boss phases. We just want to make sure those ads are dead by then. And then we rinse and repeat. There's a couple different patterns of the Fated Conjunction beams, but it's just always safe to be up against the side. Again, we're kiting ads, we're doing Grimportant. That's basically the fight. The 99% of the time, if we wipe on this fight, it's because someone fucked up a rune mechanic. There are people who have backups, so more than the necessary 6 people will get rune assignments, or get the runic affinity thing to be able to do runes. So 6 people will be assigned a particular rune. The other 4 people here are backups. So if you're a backup, you just need to be listening and watching to see if someone dies or if someone can't find their rune. Just be ready to go out there and help whoever needs it. So I'm kind of looking towards the center of the room, even though I don't have an assignment. Or Schlim is, rather. Once he sees that kind of everyone's good, he goes back to DPSing. But even then, you want to be ready to go in. Healers, the only thing with the intermission is that because the room's so big and we tend to be on this side, we usually had one healer go out towards the far side of the room just to make sure you were covering healing on the rune runners there as they were taking damage. Again, we'll try to call this out, but range need to be careful of this thing as it comes around the room because it will kill you if you let it hit you. Also, that almost killed Schlim because he stepped in it. Such a good demonstration, Schlim.
Yeah, totally playing.
It's like you knew that I was going to talk about it at that instant. So the only thing that's different is for the last phase, we will get a set of runes during the phase. There will only be 2 runes, I think.
Yeah.
So there'll still be people assigned. Only 2 of the rings will be lit up. But again, if we fail that mechanic, we wipe. So if you are able to help, just keep an eye out if you need to back up. During farm, I think we were able to just ignore these last runes, but don't count on that being the case here because it'll depend on tuning. And in phase 3, it can be the case that you have to run a rune counterclockwise depending where it spawns with respect to the lock. I want to say it was like if you had to run more than 3/4 around, then you want it to go counterclockwise. And so that's when you would call for one of the backups to get in your rune with you. Otherwise, we just kill the boss.
Yeah, one thing to note, we're actually gonna have to do a set of rings in that 3rd phase, most likely.
Yeah.
So we can't just do the farm strat where we ignore it. So people have to be prepared to do that.
Yep. Silly gimmicky boss. We just gotta do the rings. And we succeed. Oh, you don't have a KT in here. We killed KT the other day.
Yeah.
I'll just use that, even though it was a meme. Can you guys still see this?
Yeah.
All right, so this was our KT kill the other day for fun. This was a fight that was like a very don't try to parse fight. I believe it was removed from All Stars when it was relevant. It is all about priority damage, so you'll get these soul fractures, which will spawn tank ads around the room. Those are number 1 priority. Those need to die. So we kill those tank ads. Then we get a couple. So what is this called? People get these silence circles. I don't remember the name of it. If you get one of those on you, you immediately want to run towards this tip entrance of the room. Ideally, they're all stacked right on top of each other. They're a silence circle, so just move ASAP. Otherwise, you're going to be silencing people left and right. It's not something where you want to wait till the last second to move. It'll spawn the little ads from those circles. If you get spikes, you're going to stack on orange. Hopefully it's the case that we can just have them all stacked on each other. When those die, you want to make sure that they generally die all at once. Oh my god, the timing is so ridiculous. these little ads are lower priority in general, but you do want to make sure that they're dying and that they're getting ringed away from people if they're not dying. Because if they fixate on you and they hit you, you will explode a bunch of damage around you. But these spikes all need to die at the same time. When they do, everyone takes a nasty dot, so there'll be healer cooldowns running to absorb that dot. That's why it's important that they're all stacked. When the intermission starts... God, the timing was so ridiculous on this kill. Normally, these ads are not happening at the same time as all those other things. So the way the intermission works is the boss will phase. You'll get this big green portal. Some people will be assigned to going downstairs. The people who are staying upstairs will handle all these abominations and these soul reavers. The goal will be to get those stacked up, other than one of the soul reavers. And we want all these ads ideally to die at the same time, in sync with the boss dying or phasing downstairs. There will be kick rotations on the soul reavers. They channel this Banshee's Cry, which basically starts to one-shot people very quickly. And so it's important that we're getting our kicks. The abominations will do a big frontal, this thing, so you want to make sure you're not getting hit by that. And the idea is we don't want to nuke any of these too quickly. So you want to be very particular with your damage because they respawn 10 seconds after they die if we haven't phased. And so we don't want to kill an ad only to have it respawn at an annoying time. There's this weak aura which basically tracks the downstairs phase. I want to say, yeah, so it's the amount of time we have. It's the health of the guy downstairs and then the health of the different ads. Flim or someone will be calling for when we want to kill these ads upstairs. But until we make that call, you just want to try to keep them as even as possible and not finishing them off. Because we don't want to kill too early. Similarly, if you're downstairs, you don't want to kill that until the call is made. I don't have... Let's see if we've got a good downstairs VOD. Nope. I'll have to find one later. But if you're in the downstairs phase, the main thing is you want to stack. The melee want to stack as tight as possible. Koji gets very grumpy if the melee aren't stacked properly, because you're going to be spawning shit everywhere. It's kind of like Skull-X in that regard. There's going to be tornadoes that you got to dodge. There's a frontal that you got to dodge. And there's puddles on the ground that you got to dodge. And so the idea is that you're kind of doing all that as a group to minimize puddles being everywhere. So ideally, everything dies at once, so nothing respawns. And then we rinse and repeat. This phase is just the same exact thing. Here's all the ads fixing it, everyone, so you can use typhoons and whatnot. Try to keep them grouped up as possible, as much as possible, but just cleave them down. Again, it's not a parse fight, so if these are up at the same time as Fractured Souls, you want to make sure you're focusing those tank ads instead. Don't worry about the Devoted until everything else is taken care of. We also want to be careful that we're not pushing KT. So if he's, at sub 10% health, if he's about to cast Soul Fracture, just listen to Schlimm's calls, because he might call for us to stop DPS briefly so that we can handle the Soul Fracture before the intermission starts. If we beat it, that's great, but in this case, if we didn't beat it, that would have been annoying because we would have had Soul Fractures during the intermission, which often was a wipe during Prog. Otherwise, second intermission is the same. Third phase is the same. God, this fight was way too long.
So you let, in the later phases, he spawns 5 and 6 icicles per cast. Do we just let 4 expire and pre-pop 1 and 2? Like, how do we deal with the icicles later on?
It's gonna come down to tuning.
Yeah, Bruce might remember on Prague, I think something like that was done. On Farm, we just let all 6 expire and Immuned and Spirit Linked.
Yeah, during early Prog, we had like 2 stack points, and you'd get an assignment for where you would stand. And so like 4 or 5 of them would get blasted or just die naturally, and then 1 would be, 4 or 5 would get blasted, and then 1 would be not touched at all, so it would expire naturally once the debuff from the first 4 or 5 had fallen off. that'll come down to tuning. The last thing that I see here that I forgot to mention is there's a meteor soak. For everything except the last phase, there's going to be this moon marker or just some other marker. The only people soaking that are the person with the big soak and the healers. No one else needs to be in that. I guess here we had warlocks do it, I guess. I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. But most people don't need to be in that. The only time we have everyone soak it is for the first one of the third phase. Or fourth phase. I don't know. The last phase, whichever one it is. So the last phase, once we do this intermission for the last time, KT spawns. Everything looks blue. We lust, and we burn the boss. This is kind of just a race. We'll get these puddles of ice. You just want to not be standing in them. We will still get this meteor. So the first meteor, we're going to have... Okay, he's immuning it, but if you can't immune that, then we all soak that one. After that, we typically just sacrificed people. So if you get the second or subsequent meteors, you're just going to run out and don't hit anyone. Yeah, or I don't know what the call was there. The boss is dead. Doesn't matter. We still get these ads in this phase, so it's important Reavers are still being kicked, but otherwise just focus the boss. And as a reminder, if you die at any point in this fight, you will come back mind controlled during these phases. That's basically it. Hopefully it's as easy as that kill was, lol. Any questions? The hardest thing about this fight was just synchronizing the upstairs and downstairs DPS during intermissions. It was a very annoying boss, but almost exclusively for that reason. There was a lot of annoying hold DPS, garbage, waiting for cooldowns and whatnot, which hopefully we don't have to do. All right, last boss, Sylvanas. Sheesh. I guess I should have a VOD of that here too. Sylvanas Windrunner. All right. Again, I encourage everyone to go watch VODs if they haven't done this with us, or even if you have, just to refresh your memory. But I think I for my own sanity, I'm not going to go over every little thing on this fight just because there's way too much. It's like a freaking 50-minute doozy. First phase, the big pain points are killing chains quickly. So everyone, as much as possible, needs to be swapping to the various chains that start or that spawn. So we get 2 sets of change in each case. So one left, one right. You will get assigned to one of these 2 chains. If you are... The way we did these assignments was, in my opinion, backwards. And that means that they were always from the center looking outwards. So if you're looking from my perspective, that means everything's reversed. So if your chain says right, you actually want to be hooked to the left set here. And if your chain says left, you want to be hooked to the right set here.
It might be worthwhile looking at the prog VOD of this instead, more because we severely nuked the last platforms and stuff just before you get too far in.
Good Pab's lovely perspective.
Actually, and phase 1 was much longer than what we initially.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to go through all of it anyway, but
right.
Yeah, so we get first chain set. So the idea with the chains is you just need to be one of the closest people to it. So that doesn't mean you need to be right up against it. But you get the chains. Everyone needs to swap. If you are chained, you can typically just blast your own chain. Range are then baiting on square. So we didn't have this the other night, but we used to have a gate 2 square. So we'd bait here, kill the 2 sentinels that spawn, and then as soon as we bait the darkness, you get out. And then back in. Then you just dodge some shit on the ground. You get new chains. Same thing goes. So if you're on the right, you're actually from this perspective on the left.
think the biggest thing for ranged players is if you're looking inwards on the platform. The thing I always did to get my chains correct was in my head as the arrows were coming out, I would always say right is left, left is right.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way that I could remember which side to go to since they were kind of backwards for ranged.
Yeah, left and right has become a meme since this boss, where we often ask, do you mean Sylvanas left and Sylvanas right? Because left is right and right is left. So this chain is one of the more annoying ones for range, because we get these chains. So this is after we bait on square. You get these chains, and then even though you're getting pulled in, we want to stack right in the middle. And so it's important that you just fight your chain as much as possible so that we still get this bait on square. And then once we get that, then you can spread out and blast your chains. Then we get these sentinels. The sentinels spawn from the arrows. I don't remember what they're called, but just the arrows. If you get an arrow above your head, you're generally always going to be running to the opposite end of the room. So in this case, I don't know which marker that is. Can't see it from here, but basically you're going to be running.
Triangle, yellow.
Yeah, you're going to be running towards here where Schlimm's cat is. Just get as far as you can. 3 people will always get them, and it does like a pretty big AOE when you get hit. So if you're like the second or third person, just make sure you're letting the person before you go out all the way before you go, so you don't get blasted. We then want, Ring of Frost, Ring of Peace, AOE stuns, whatever, just to keep these from getting onto the boss, and then we cleave them down. Then we get another bait here, so we're going to bait on Skull, I think it was. So there's a gate here to help if you need it. Slim move shortly, I think. One day. Yeah, okay, so now people are baiting. Slim fucking bait, Jesus. All right, there you go. We bait on Skull. We get another Veil. And then here's basically, I guess we get one more set of chains. This is where we often had to stop DPS. Hopefully there will be none of that, but she'll phase. So when she phases at like 84%, I think, we will all stack on a marker, and then we get various chains. So ranged want to kill... I don't know where everyone gets chained. I just know where I stand. Is it healers on this one?
So healer. It depends on when you phased her. So the arrow pattern is different depending on where you phase her in the room. So the rules to follow here are healers bait towards the closest arrow set, melee bait farthest away from the closest set, melee kill the healer set, and then they rotate around the room in that direction. So in this case, melee would bait right, healers would bait left, melee would kill left, then melee would keep going left to kill arrows, and ranged would kill center, and then right, and then far.
Yeah. So in this
case, a lot of rules, but
yeah, I mean, we just want to kill these first. So that's going to be what the healers are on. Range are killing this middle pack first, and then the rest will kind of die as people move. You're dodging rives and swirls throughout all of this. This is super punishing. Everything's a one-shot. Just fucking move. We had a lot of rive deaths. It's silly. Don't die to rive, please. And kill your arrows. Eventually she'll go immune. Even after... Okay, yeah. She's immune. We phase. Blah, blah, blah. Skip the RP. Then we break into 2 chain groups. One left, one right. So left group is going to go this way. Right group's going to go this way. As soon as the bridges spawn. Throughout this intermission, there's going to be these Banshee waves. You don't want to be hit by these. They push you back so they can knock you off. They put a nasty dot that stacks on you. And you're going to kill your adds. You're always going to target the summoner first, if there is one. And if you can decurse, please decurse. So there's the decurse. When these orbs spawn, you want to kill or kick and kill the terror orbs because they will fear. A lot of people had like a target/kick macro for these orbs. You want to stack for the Veil. These Veils have been largely nerfed since then. They're way smaller now. But you just stack up to bait them and then kill them.
It's
move
so
out and kill.
incredibly important that you kick those terror orbs. We saw it the other night, but
Yeah.
also if you're a shaman, drop tremor just in case.
Yes.
It's one global to save the raid or save the pull.
Or, if you're a dwarf priest, fear ward.
True.
Kick W. Kick this ruin at the last second. That goes for pretty much all the ruins. And then we stack back up. Because you're going to get a wave first, and then we're going to bait. So here's the wave. And then you stack for the Veil. She Veils. We land, and then we gate.
It's possible we won't have a gate here on...
Yeah, they're much
While
smaller
we're
now,
doing
so you
this,
can just
they're
run
so
out
small.
at this point. But it's important that you at least still stack so that we're not getting Veils baited everywhere. You get one more set of waves, and then we spread as we run towards the next set of bridges.
A big thing about Banshee's Wail, it's an execute. It does more damage the lower health you are, so if one's happening you're low health, that's a perfect moment to health stun health pot. It'll heal 3 times as much as normal.
Yep. So again here, we're killing any terror orbs, kicking the terror orbs, we're stacking before Veils. If you're on the other side in this platform, you just want to make sure we're all super tightly stacked so that we're distributing the soak there. These circles, you just want to make sure you're not cleaving people with them. Don't go crazy dispelling these healers because every time you dispel it, it duplicates and we get 2 more. Once we kill the summoner, or is it the soul judge? The soul judge. Once the soul judge dies, then you can dispel these and they won't replicate anymore.
You don't need to anymore after they nerfed it. So it doesn't do damage after the summoner dies.
Awesome.
They basically made it a non-mechanic. Just don't dispel it.
All right, so just don't dispel, period. Perfect.
It's important to note, since we're watching this from my POV, the other side of the chain, there's one big Goliath on that second set. Basically, you stack to soak the big AoE. And Babs might have the POV.
I've got it for sure.
You stack on one side, you soak the big AoE, you bait Veil, and then you just move to the other side of the boss, the Goliath boss, and then you just stack up again. Just make sure you're not moving around a ton so the tanks don't cleave you.
I guess on Prague I wasn't on that side. Okay. Maybe he was.
It should be around 8 minutes in. Go forward more.
Damn, all our POVs are from the same side. Whatever. It's a
My
big
last-
dude.
I
Just
won
stack.
last week, but
Which way do you run, Shalom? Do you remember? For that side? Like, you know how when you get the soak, there's a veil that comes out at the same time and you have to move
right.
like out
You
of the
run,
veil?
you run through the Goliath.
There we
Or
go.
just straight through? Okay.
Just straight through the Goliath, yep.
Okay.
Here's my POV from last week. Oh my god, so many fucking waves.
Don't do what he did. Waves bad.
Worked out fine. So we all just stack. When we get the veil, we just run straight through. Now we move. Then we stack back up again. The boss will turn the guy away so we don't get frontaled. Hopefully no one gets hit by veil like this.
Did you just call me a boss?
What? No, this guy's the boss.
Never
Yeah, he
mind.
did.
Whatever. I didn't mean it.
Just had to confirm.
But yeah, then we get the last platform. Similarly, we get waves, and then we stack in for veils. If you want, you can also bait them on the bridges. Just if you're doing that with multiple people, make sure you're like, you guys are at least stacked, so you're not painting the whole bridge. Then add spawn, and we phase, yada yada. Phase 3. Everyone's going to have an assigned spot on this platform. So like 1 through 20, or at least 1 through 18. Tanks will do whatever the fuck tanks do. It is very important that you're playing towards that as much as you can, because we're constantly baiting things. So don't stand in these puddles. When we bait veils, we bait from our spots. So as range, you can pretty much always play from your spot. Once we get the veil, then you want to stack back up to distribute. For Banshee's Fury, you want to play towards the middle of this kind of corner of the sigil to minimize your chance of picking up one of these puddles. Priest, if you can mass Dispel towards the end of that, that's helpful, just in case someone happens to pick one up last second. You can also mass Dispel right as we jump for the raise, so she'll, after this last Banshee's Fury, she'll cast Raise. You need to be off this platform when she finishes the cast. She'll do these arrows, so 3 people will get arrows. First person can go right away. The third arrow, so as you can see here, third arrow is going to double jump. So that means you're going to go basically 2 platforms over. So you're going to go 1 platform and then straight to the next. And the idea is just you don't want to blow up the arrow on the platform that we're all on. For Death Knives, just move a small amount, but do it quickly and then plant. You don't want to keep wiggling. Makes it hell for everyone else. Again, every time we get Veil, we're baiting from our spots. Jorg Garnish. We stack up after the Veils. People soak these. There will be certain ones that are assigned, and there's 1 or 2 that anyone soaks. Just listen for the calls. Banshee's Fury again, so we want to be stacked right over here. Mass Dispel towards the end of the cast. Dodge shit on the ground. Spread for Death Knives. And then stop.
The big thing right there is that arrow, that Morgut, the person that gets the third one there needs to go to the third platform. Otherwise, they're going to get knocked off by Merciless.
Yeah. They run out with the second person, right?
Yep. So second and third person always go out together for that one, but the third person needs to jump an extra platform.
Yeah, so right
here
I'm waiting. I'm kind of waiting as long as I can to take this, but as soon as this third arrow gets assigned, person should be running, and they should already be running, jumping to that platform that I went to, and then 1 further, so that when I jump here, like now. So Babs at this point should already be on this third platform, so that when I blow up, he doesn't also blow up. It didn't matter here because we're way over geared for it, but that would have killed him.
I think that's the first arrow set that you do the double jump, right?
Yeah.
Or is it the second one?
It's only the first one.
It's the first one.
Is this the first arrow set? I thought this was the
this
second.
is the
I
second.
don't know which one this is.
I've been working on something else at the same time. So.
Yeah, I think we have in the teleprompter where it says yeah, this one, third arrow, double jump. But
so
that's the idea.
One thing that just to help, I guess, for people, if you are the third arrow, you just want to run like on the inside track pretty much, so you have the least amount of time on the second platform. Like
yeah.
You want to run.
You want to jump over here. Don't
right.
run over where Milk is, because you'll have way further to run. That's a good point.
Healers, FYI, do not get wailing arrows. So on the one hand, healers, you don't necessarily have to worry about that mechanic. But on the other hand, people who do get wailing arrows know that you will never have healing on those other platforms. You have to get back.
Yeah, you're on your own. The last, I guess there's two more things I want to point out here. Which one I don't remember if we got on this. Which platform's the one where we go to the opposite corner? Shlem, do you remember?
Just go back to my log. It's on my video. It's the fourth platform that we do.
Fourth
that.
platform.
Yeah, because there's no one. That's for the arrows, right? Because there's no other place
Yes.
to go.
Yeah, right
So once
here.
you get far enough on to like once you get to the third platform, there's like a hunter and mage soak, and then you get to the fourth platform. You have to do this intricate corner stuff.
Yeah, I just
to
want to listen to
avoid
comms
arrow
here
damage.
for a sec. Oh my god, music. Are there comms? Oh, you don't have comms in the VOD. Never mind. Just weird music.
Thought I did, but
But basically on this
I do.
platform, we're going to bait on this corner. So this is, if you're looking at towards the center of the room, it's the left corner. Just to get as far as possible from all the arrows that are blowing up. There's that, and then the last thing I wanted to point out.
You were on third platform there.
Yeah, I think.
So it's the opposite way. I think we stacked on the sigil corner for fourth platform. If you get there
on the sigil corner.
Yeah. No, I was specifically
And then
talking
the
about
gate
that
to the
one.
outside.
I'm not.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm getting to the gate.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. So this is the part where we do the arrows on. Like we've only got one platform left, and so whoever gets the first arrow just walks out or does whatever their class shit. The moment that their arrow.
First arrow is always a tank. Yeah.
Okay, so tank always goes out first. The moment their arrow explodes, they're going to gate back. The second arrow person wants to be waiting in the wings to the side. I don't know if anyone's... Desmond's probably just going to leap, I'm guessing. But assuming you don't have a leap or something, you want to be waiting over here. That way you're minimizing damage, but you still have enough time to get over there, because the idea is the moment the tank arrow goes off, tank gates back, and you run over to this corner. So you should see Desmond leap. Yeah, so there Desmond goes. Then he blows up. Then the moment the second person blows up, Atsu's going to gate, or he's got druid shit, but assuming you're slow, the moment the second arrow goes off, you would gate over.
Yeah, so the second arrow should gate back into the group. The third arrow should gate out of the group because it's happening at the same time as Death Knives. And the important thing here is that Death Knives on other platforms was make a small move and stop. On this platform, it is get the fuck out of the raid and make sure you're not hitting the raid and stop. Even if you die, you just get the fuck out.
Yeah, you don't care for the last Death Knives. You don't care if you get hit. You care if your line is going through the raid.
Yeah, so you see all these guys just scatter here in a second and get out of the raid. You also need to pop a huge defensive because it happens at the same exact time as the arrow is going off.
So whoever's arrow this is, they shouldn't be doing that, but the rest are decent.
That's because one of them goes on a tank.
Yeah.
Rude.
One of them, it doesn't always go on a tank, but there is the possibility of one going on a tank, and that basically was the worst case scenario right there. It's the one that went on the tank is the one that points right through the group.
Yeah. But ideally we kill the boss before then. But we'll see. Yeah. It's a long ass, annoying fight. Phase 3 is cool. The other phases suck.
Phase 3 is basically entirely on tanks. A very large part of that phase is on tanks.
We don't know which faded one is on Sylvanas, right?
No. We have no clue which bosses they're on next week.
All right.
Just something to add more, if you don't mind me saying something.
Sure.
One of the things that I did that helped me a lot in progression is I emphasized Banshee's Veil, especially in P3. It's like very important to like make sure you're getting to your soak spot as a melee. If you're like, you have a spot that's not on the boss, that's like very helpful just to have like a 5-second reminder before it's going off. Like I think last week or whenever we did the reclear, like all my stuff got reset, so I didn't have that emphasis. But it's like, yeah, it's very noticeable just to have it. I think it's just
Yeah,
nice
we
to have
were-
like a reminder for it, like
We-
before it goes off.
We were very vocal about this. I, in particular, called out a lot of spread and stack in this last phase.
Mm.
So I agree. Add it to your bigwigs and have me yelling at you too. Movement is so important in this last phase. If you pick up a puddle accidentally, or you're not stacked in during a Banshee's Veil, or not stacked in during a Fury, or you are not spread out for Veil, you're going to kill somebody or
Mhm.
yourself. So
Start making your way over to the other corner.
This is knives and design sets.
Yes. 10 seconds.
Back when Z was an officer. Good
Dispel.
times.
Okay, start spreading.
What do you mean?
This is
He's
knives.
still an officer.
Assign sets.
Back when I did things.
Yeah. Raid leader Pow.
Wait, why don't we just promote Pow
spread
to
spots. We
officer?
advance.
No.
again?
Sure.
We're going to run over and stack on the left.
Don't cheat on these. Get your spot early.
So awkward.
How big an officer? Yeah.
They're you're not going over anything else, right?
Start
Mark?
spreading out.
Nope.
Can spot
I'm just
yourself.
watching this for comms, but if you have anything else to add or you want to hop, feel free, because that's all I got.
Remember, don't come back
Thanks for
early
doing
with
this. It
arrows.
definitely helps to have a
Just
recording
spell 'em and mango
before
pick 'em.
going into the raid. So
Watch feet, feet.
Yep.
take care, everyone. Have a good rest of the night.
Take it easy.